Good afternoon, everyone. I see comments in the box that you couldn't hear us. We're turning our microphones on and getting ready to start our conversation today about UVM's End of Life Doula program. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Nicole Louillier Fenton, and I work at our continuing and distance education. We're going to talk with Francesca, who is our program director, and we're going to dive into our End of Life Doula program. And so we're going to try to keep this pretty succinct today. I know you have lots to do, so we'll try to keep this to about a half hour. As I've mentioned in the chat box that you're seeing and you were making comments, please put your questions there. If there's something that you would like to ask specific about the program, if there's something you would like to follow up with Francesca, we'd be happy to do that, and I'll keep an eye on those questions. There may be questions that come up that we need some follow-up afterwards. We'll make sure to put our email address up throughout the presentation so you can follow up specifically. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what is an end-of-life doula. We'll dive into that. What is the program here at UVM? What are the objectives of the course and the structure of the course? And I know Francesca gets a lot. How does this course work? And so we're going to talk about what does that mean, an online course? And so we'll dive into that. What kind of time commitment is there for you? We're going to get some quotes from some of our students as well. And then we're going to talk about when you need to apply and when is the next start and the various different logistics and cost of the program. And also I'm going to have Francesca share a little bit about a new program that's coming up, which is our companion animal end of life doula program, which is a brand new program that we're really excited to share as well. So wonderful. I'm already seeing the questions come in. As I mentioned, my name is Nicole, and I am so happy to have Francesca with us today, who has been the originator and our leader of this wonderful program. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to talk End of Life Doula today. And so you can see the different areas of expertise that Francesca has and why we really are so thankful that she is with us leading our End of Life Doula program. But this is something Francesca and I were just talking about before we turned on the microphones. This is something that's really outstanding, I think, and that really sets this program apart. It isn't just Francesca that's leading the discussions and the learning opportunities for our End of Life Doula. There's an entire team behind this program. Will you share with us a little bit about what we're seeing here and how the program has evolved to have such a deep bench of educators?
Sure. When doing the research for this program and developing the curriculum, I knew that it was important to feature voices from the many facets of end of life care, including the medical and the spiritual and the social and the interpersonal and the direct experiences from those who have been serving the dying. So this smattering of wonderful faces, they represent all of those facets, and we get to hear from them their experiences, their stories, their tips and suggestions for our learners, which is invaluable.
Absolutely. And this is fairly new as well. As the program has continued to evolve. More and more people have graduated the program, have become learners and working out in the field and been able to share their experiences. So it's really such a wealth of knowledge and experiences that we're able to share in this program. I am seeing some questions come in. I'll get to those in just a moment, but I really wanted to, let's start a little bit higher level. Let's talk about what is an end-of-life doula.
So an end-of-life doula, we're inspired by the beginning of life doulas, so the birthing doulas. And I've been a birth worker for about a decade. I don't do as much of that work anymore because I'm more focused on this realm, but still on occasion I will attend a birth. And so I really looked at my experience supporting families during pregnancy, helping them prepare for childbirth with education and planning and wishes, and then supporting them through the birthing and then after the postpartum period. We can really translate most of that to end-of-life care. It's a different experience. It's a different journey. It's also natural and expected. And so the essential skills are quite similar in the sense that we provide companioning, we provide non-judgmental care. We do not bring an agenda of our own. We don't know what our clients' best experience
to their needs.
will be for them. We assist them with creating their own vision and their own personal journey. So a doula, in terms of end of life, when we're leading up to a dying, we like to consider that living up until dying. We're not focused on the death. And some programs and some doulas may call themselves death doulas.
Right. Yep.
And the reason that we chose end of life is because we look at it from time of diagnosis, or it could even be before that. People are really starting to think about their advanced care planning and their own wishes and the not knowing of the timing of it all. Through the living up until dying process and then the actual act of dying and then the bereavement period
Right.
for their loved ones. So a doula can really support that whole journey of end of life. And we focus on things like legacy work and life review. So sometimes making lasting gifts for their family members that they
Yeah,
can
so
leave behind
wonderful.
and
Yeah.
reflecting on what has been meaningful, prioritizing, thinking about wishes. So much like a birth doula helps creating birth wishes,
Mm.
we can help create vigil wishes
Yep.
for the time that someone's no longer communicative, yet we still want for that person to feel really safe and comfortable as much as possible. Advanced care planning. Some doulas provide respite care for exhausted caregivers.
Yep.
So there are some different ways that we interpret the term, but the overall support is much of what I just mentioned.
And so valuable
Mhm.
for our clients
Mhm.
and family members,
Mhm.
and just so valuable to be having these conversations because I think
Definitely.
that our American culture doesn't embrace this as much as perhaps we should because it's inevitable. And I think one of the women that we worked with, Kimberly Paul, that we had a panel discussion this summer. On death and doulas and the role that they play, she really brought it to the point that we know this is going to happen at some point, but we don't talk about it.
Mhm.
And so this is really an opportunity, I think, for to bring that conversation at least to the forefront.
Right. And our learners throughout the program are really asked to reflect on their own
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
their own grief, their own wounds,
Mm.
and spend time on their own planning and their wishes and getting more clarity about that. So they're really doing the work before they go in to assist somebody else do their work.
Really important
Hmm.
and challenging, I would
Hmm.
imagine.
Very
Yeah, very
emotional.
challenging.
Hmm.
So some of the things that the course, and we'll dive a little bit more into detail about what does it mean to be in the certificate program and what does that look like. But what are we trying to accomplish here? And I think that you've touched on some of these things in terms of the role that doulas play and understanding. The course is really trying to help you understand where do you fit into this mix because you're often intertwining with medical professionals and family and various different things. And so how does a doula kind of navigate those waters? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? We would consider ourselves a complementary layer. And
Mm-hmm.
so assessing what is already in place and what else might be beneficial in
Mm-hmm.
addition to us
Right.
is very helpful, lifts a burden off of families. But also, I want to mention that our learner pool, we're not just seeing aspiring doulas. We always have some aspiring doulas, but we're also seeing medical care
Right.
providers and spiritual care workers and mental health professionals and hospice volunteers, people who in their own personal life know of someone, a loved one, a neighbor, a friend who just maybe received a terminal diagnosis
Mm.
and this person coming through feels ill prepared,
Yeah.
wants some confidence, wants some approaches, some techniques to offer. So our program is really set up well so that we can address all of those goals that learners are bringing.
That's great. That's a great perspective, and that's helpful. I hopefully that some folks who are joining us today can see themselves in some of those
Hmm.
different roles as well. Let's take a moment to, we'll go over the slide in a second, but I want to jump into some of the questions because I see them coming fast and furious as well. So let me just kind of scroll back up and see if I can catch some of the beginning ones. Jim asks, is the certification recognized nationally? And so our response to that too, and I'd love your feedback too, is that this is not an accreditation, but this is a certificate that absolutely you can bring to clients and to organizations and tout as completing the program if you are indeed planning on hanging the sign out front
Hmm.
and work. Do you get that question a lot as
We
well?
do.
Yeah.
And we don't consider ourselves to be a certification
Right.
program.
Mm-hmm.
Learners who successfully complete the program get a certificate
Right.
of completion. And so they can carry that certificate and from a med school at a university
Yep.
and that they've put in on average
Mm-hmm.
80 to 100 hours for this particular training program. So you can bring it wherever you go, certainly. And there is no licensure, there's no overarching
Mm-hmm.
body,
Right.
it's not regulated.
Mm-hmm.
There's people on both sides of that, either pushing for it or against it, but we're watching as it all unfolds. But no, that's not how it is currently.
There's a great question, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more, but there's some questions about it being an online program. And so we're going to talk about what does that look like, when does the assignments come out, and when do the readings open, and so we'll dive into that a little bit later. Let me just see if there's other questions that we can see the links on the website have been, okay, maybe there's some links on the website. We'll make sure that we check those as well. And I am seeing, excuse me, more questions about being online. Let me just see if there's other things that are pertaining to not just that question before we dive into that. We have a question about my daughter, who's 17, wanted to know if she could do the course as well. Do we have an age requirement? She has helped in end of life situations by playing harp for patients.
Harp.
Yeah.
Oh,
Have you seen
lovely.
folks that are younger that participate in the program?
I don't know if we've seen people under 18.
Hmm.
We have a wide range of ages that
Right.
come through, which is incredibly rich
Yeah.
as we're sharing stories online.
But there's no age limitation, I would
I
imagine.
would have to check,
Yeah,
but
I'm
not
not
that I
sure.
know
I
of.
don't think so, but I'm not sure. So why don't you, and I know that Kelly has, if she has not yet, the email address will be up in the chat box. And so that would be a great question. I don't think
Not
we've,
from my perspective,
yeah,
but
right.
from
We'd love to have
CVE.
you. Let's
Sure.
find out logistically if that's something that we can learn a little bit more about. And oh, this is a great one too, and I suspect you get this a lot too. The difference between end of life doula and hospice care,
Mm.
and respite and family care as well.
Mhm.
So, how do you kind of help folks to understand what are the two differences here?
Well, hospice provides the medical care, and then they also have an interdisciplinary team, which provides many other supportive
Hmm.
services. So, a doula would complement that care that's already in place
Right.
and then sort of address what else might you need. It could be bedside coverage, it could be the respite, or it could
Hmm.
be these really specific projects like vigil planning or
Hmm.
advanced care planning or the legacy work that I talked about earlier. And so it could be hourly visits for a number of weeks, or it could be set up that 3 times a week you're coming for these certain
Hmm.
slots. So
Hmm.
it would be in addition to
Mm.
hospice. Although we feel like there's potential for a doula to get involved even sooner
Mm.
than hospice. And we see that oftentimes people will wait
Yeah.
almost until
Yeah.
they're in
Yeah.
crisis, unfortunately,
Yeah.
to welcome hospice in. So doulas also work alongside palliative care, which can be provided in
Yep.
the community and homes. And doulas could also go into facilities and assisted care
Yeah.
living situations. So wherever somebody considers home to be, even if it's temporary or rehab
Mm.
center, a doula could go in and offer supportive services.
Great, thank you. I
Mhm.
think that hopefully gives you a little bit of clarity. And I see other folks very doula-like answering some folks in the chat box. So thank you for contributing your knowledge as well.
And we
Um,
certainly have doulas who are also hospice
Hospice, yes.
volunteers. And
Hmm.
I'm a hospice volunteer as a doula. So that's a pathway that I've worked with our local hospice to create because many of our graduates want more hands on experience
Right,
before they would maybe go hang a shingle. So
right.
I've worked with our hospice to create a subset of their hospice volunteer
Mm.
group that are trained doulas.
And I think this might be a good time to kind of start weaving in some of the discussions about what it means to be in an online course, because I wanted to talk about just some of the intended outcomes, but we'll get back to the fact of the cohort and the networking and the opportunities to learn from each other,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that that's also really valuable. And what you're talking about is the different paths or different ways that people see using this
Mm-hmm.
experience as well. So some of these things, and I won't read each line in here, but I think hopefully you'll see what are some of the intended outcomes here for our doula program that Francesca has been talking about as well. And I think what's a common thread is support, is really supporting the various different people involved in this process, and providing the needs, and assessing the needs, and then providing the support that's necessary for them too. Um, do you want to maybe touch on just what are from your perspective the intended outcomes? I know there are many, but what are you hoping that folks really walk out of this experience with being able to do?
Sure. I think there are definitely many. I think getting in touch with our own fears and anxieties and grief is a really important step in general for humans, and thinking about our own mortality awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and then being able to have more conversations with our loved ones, with our
Yeah.
families, and then with clients if we're working in that capacity. Also, for people who work in the field, we get a number of people who come through that are very burnt out.
Yeah, I bet.
They're
Yeah.
exhausted. This is a lot of heart work. And so they're coming through the course to heal and to also think about new strategies moving
Back
forward
in their
that
work.
are
Hmm.
more protective.
Yeah.
So, in terms of our stance on compassion and what that really means to avoid fatigue, that's another important
Yeah,
outcome.
I
So,
bet.
it's more comfort, more confidence in these sorts of conversations and in these realms that are really intense. How do you
Hmm.
cultivate that inner calm? How do you sit with silence? How do you sit with the unanswerable?
Really good tips. And beyond just doula.
That's what we hear
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
That people
absolutely.
are saying this is helpful for my work relationships,
Yeah,
for my romantic
yeah, yeah.
relationships, parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. Sitting with silence is a challenge, I think,
Hmm.
in our day. So I want to get into, because we've had a lot of questions about online course versus in person versus hybrid, and what does that look like. So let's take a look, and I want to share with you as well that with our end of life doula program, we have an introductory week prior to the actual start of the course, which is an orientation. And so we recognize that many of our folks maybe have never taken an online course, or you need a refresher, or you haven't been in our platform, which is Blackboard. And so before a week before the course, there's an opportunity to do an orientation. I will also say that even before that orientation that you are able to do as an end of life doula program participant, we also have a webinar and Kelly maybe could put up the date for the specific webinar. It is how to be an effective online student. And so, how do you learn as an online student? What tips do you need? What techniques? And we actually have one of our instructional designers who are the behind the curtain folks that put together this material. So they work in connection with Francesca and her team, and they actually create the material in that online format. So we hear from one of those designers that can walk us through how to be successful. And so we also have other opportunities on our website of some learning tools that you could use to get comfortable in an online setting. And because we really do want you to be successful in any online course, but specifically for our end of life doula folks as well. So, can you walk us through? You get this one all the time.
Yes.
How many hours is going to take? What is it going to be like to do it online? Can I possibly learn this kind of compassion and confidence building in an online course?
Mhm.
Take that away.
Sure. So our modules launch every Wednesday morning and they're open for a week. So Tuesday at midnight they close and then the next module opens that next Wednesday morning. And they remain open for the rest of the course and beyond for a number of months. People get nervous about that too. Can I continue to
Right? Can I look
access
back and
the
yeah? And
material?
yes, you can. Yes.
Yes, definitely. And so you'll have it all organized in that module with assignments, with the course content, with any links that you have to go out to, with readings. And then we have the discussion boards. We often, during each week, have a quiz to cover the material for review, and we'll have discussion board prompts. And those are due Sunday night and Tuesday night. Those are the deadlines for those, but you can do them anytime before that. And usually we have each week one that requires an initial post and then responsive posts to your classmates, and then one that's due Tuesday evening that does not require responsive posts. So that's sort of the flow of things.
Right.
We also have journals, which are optional, and that's a private communication between the learner and myself. So if there's something that you really don't feel comfortable processing with the group, you can feel free to go into it over the journals. And we see most learners are saying about 8 to 12 hours on average per week. We also have a number of for further learning resources for each module. And so that goes above and beyond those hours. So if you have the time, you can spend 20 hours a week. If you don't, you can pick and choose what you'd like to save for later and kind of extend your learning onward, because there's just so much that we want to include.
Right. And only for most folks, that maybe you are working as well and trying to add this in. You're trying to prioritize your time in here as well.
And we want to respect that. And
mhm.
we have learners from all over the world.
Yep.
So it's asynchronous. We don't have live sessions because there's no way that we could
Can't imagine.
fairly
Right.
choose a time of day to honor everyone's clock in their neck of the woods.
Exactly.
And so it's all online, all asynchronous at your convenience, yet really interactive. The discussion boards are incredibly rich. And we find that initially everybody's working through the kinks of getting used to Blackboard. By 2 weeks in, they're finding their rhythm.
Yep.
They're really starting to trust the group. We have
smaller groups.
Yeah,
I wanted you to touch on that. Yeah. Because we do up to 200 people may be in a session, but that does not mean that you're going to have to comment and review 200. You get into
25.
smaller groups so that it creates a much more intimate opportunity.
Yes. Yeah. And so relationships build, trust builds. We're practicing the doula approach, the doula voice within the boards, outside in our own lives, bringing it back together. a lot of reflection. And by the end of the course, we often see this grief that comes up for people to have to put this aside, end it, say
Yeah.
goodbye.
Yeah.
And then we stay connected
Yep.
over Facebook and through
Mhm.
our quarterly
Yep.
newsletters.
Yep. Great. Thank you. I hope that helps. I know we had many questions coming in about what does that mean to be online as well. And I see so many questions. So I'm hoping that either Kelly's getting to some of the logistics ones, or if there's ones that she's trying. We're trying to get to your questions today. Thank you for asking so many wonderful questions. So one of the things that Francesca was touching on are the different modules and the different weeks. So basically, a module is the learning environment for that week. And so you're seeing really what the course looks like. And so this will give you an idea of what happens in the flow of information. I always think that the bonus module is really exciting for people too, to think about, well, what's next for you? And then what do you need? I love the idea of the doula bag. Will
Yeah.
you just tell us a little bit about what that means and what can be in that bonus module?
Sure. So the bonus mod we reserve until week 7. So it launches with the mod 7 and then remains open. So some people don't have the time to look at it during the course, and then they come back after the course wraps and then they spend their time in there. So no required assignments or anything, no required boards for that. It's really this gathering of information. So the doula bag is a tour, a video tour I give of my doula bag. And then we also feature an end of life caregiver. We have a library of videos, and those are based off of frequently asked questions.
Great. Yeah.
So we have a collection of that. We have information about the business side, how to get started, your first steps,
Yeah.
some suggestions about insurance coverage.
Lots of things that you've learned over the last several years that folks have been asking about. And so I think it's important to see a few quotes. We were hoping to have a student join us today, but you can hear from some of our students in these quotes. And I think that one of the things that I've seen as a theme when I've been talking to some of the students is what an impact this has made on their lives. Really opened up the lens for them to see things differently, refresh a little bit in terms of that fatigue that they may have as a healthcare worker, and feeling more confident in having these kinds of conversations in everyday life. And I think that the more that we can, as we said in the beginning, the more that we can bring that to the surface, I think we all will be a little healthier, hopefully.
And more prepared. And then
Yeah.
what we see is that during an end of life situation, people are able to spend time in more meaningful ways because they've already done all the practical planning ahead of time. And there's not the arguing and the fighting and those sorts of dynamics that can flare when there's so much that's left unknown.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thank you for sharing that as well. Let's see if we can get to a few of these questions, and then I want Francesca to share with us what we're seeing on the screen here. So let's see if I can try to back up some of these questions. What kind of writing assignments will there be? Alexia asks, how long will the assignments be? So maybe as part of the journal, is that really the writing assignments?
Probably the discussion boards.
And the discussion board assignments, yep.
Just right off the bat, we don't worry about grammar or sentence structure or punctuation or capitalization. None of that matters. It's really about the meat of what you're trying to convey and how well you can. It depends on the prompts, but if we're asking for something from a piece of research or an article or a video that we've watched, are you connecting dots? Are you connecting it to your own life? And are you integrating the information? And so that's what we're looking for. So we've worked with learners that have different needs in terms of their learning styles, and that's totally fine. We're really welcoming everyone wherever they are, and there's space for everyone. So they're not terribly lengthy. We're not asking for long essays. I mean, sometimes we'll say a minimum of 200 words, or sometimes we'll put a certain number of words, but mostly it's about did you answer the prompts adequately?
Great. Thank you for that clarification. And Alexa also asked, will there be instructions on how to set up a doula business at the end? We've touched on that a little bit, and it's in that bonus module. And not everybody is looking for that. So I think that's what's great about it being kind of as this bonus module, because if that's the path that you want to go down, then there is information to help support that. I think one of the things that's also wonderful about this program and happens in this online setting is that you really build networks with each other, and you can learn that two people in your smaller group are interested in setting up a business. What does that look like? And you can share and really help each other to hold that up, because I think we have a goal of a doula in every community in the world. And so the more that we can see this helping to um, materialize, I think is really important.
And I mean, the bonus mod is a great starting point, but I just want to be clear that this is an emerging
Hmm.
profession. And so there is equal amounts of community education that's required in addition to hanging a shingle legally.
Right. Good point. Absolutely. Because most people are not going to know what this
No.
is. They are going to
And why they need it.
absolutely
Yeah.
not know what an end of life
Right.
doula is. So, one of the charges, I suspect, and outcomes for our doulas is to help educate other folks what that means and why that is so key. Um, Great. Let me see if I can zip up a little bit more. Oh, Heidi says my doula bag is huge. Former student here. I'm about to find out. She's about to find out about the companion animal course.
Oh,
Great.
great.
So we'll jump into that in a minute. How many students per course? Michael asked. I think we have usually about 200.
It depends,
Yep.
yeah, but 25 per section.
Right. And that's really what matters. You're
Yeah.
really getting to know in your smaller groups. And good, we're getting that question, excuse me, quite a bit. What about the people who don't have Facebook? I signed off for good. You know what? I don't blame
We
you.
have a
But
lot of those people.
yes.
Sometimes they're so motivated to stay connected that they will create a
Crying
Facebook
back in.
profile just for this reason. And
Right.
so that's something to consider. Don't want to pressure you into it, but that is the way that we stay connected.
Oh, good. We're here seeing some other, and I think you get this a lot too. Is that Alexis? Oh, I just lost you. She's a former hospice worker, and it was the most rewarding job she had. She would
Mhm.
definitely do it for free. I'm just curious. Oh, perhaps you were asking. Maybe I missed your comment above about if you charge for it. So I'm sorry if I missed that. Um, let's see, Maggie says, I was doing this work for 20 plus years. I'm a volunteer for hospice, integral part of my community, home for the dying. My issue was cost. Also volunteer for the compassionate care team with the coroner's office. Certificate is my goal. I'm blessed to continue with a free workshop, helpful in this field as well. Um, Right. I mean, this is a certificate program, there's education, and this is in connection with UVM's Larner College of Medicine. And so while we try to keep the fee as reasonable as possible, we know that that doesn't always meet everybody's needs. But thank you again for these questions. Here's a great question, too. What efforts are being made to increase diversity in our end of life doula program? And I think we get quite a diverse
We do.
cohort of
We
learners
do.
from all over the world. So I think we are open to
Oh,
anybody
yeah.
and a variety of different, and we get questions too about, will this conflict with my Buddhism and various
Mhm.
different things? And so help us understand how that might work, and how we do embrace really everybody for this program.
Mhm. Well, yeah, it's important that we walk the walk because that is the way of the doula. We are neutral and non-judgmental and fully accepting. So that's our stance from the program's perspective as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
And we feature a number of voices
Hmm.
that demonstrate some diversity as well. So I would say we definitely skew female, but we try to feature a number of male voices in the course in effort to
Right. Hmm.
embrace and invite more
Yeah.
people who identify as male.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. Why don't you tell us what we're seeing here? That's the
The
doula
doula
heart.
heart.
Yeah.
Yes.
What
So
does
those
that
are
mean?
the essentials. That's
Yeah.
a lovely graphic from the course. So this is we cover all of this that you're
Hmm.
seeing in here. And some of these are secular Buddhist philosophies, so not about higher power, prayer, or anything, but the turning toward in the beginner's mind. That is information that we've gotten from our chief of palliative care,
Hmm.
who is
Yep.
one of our
Yep.
featured subject matter experts, and that's something that he has incorporated into his palliative care work, and that we feel like is really in alignment with the doula
Yeah.
heart.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Gives you a little bit of a glimpse as to the kind of things that you'll see in the program. And so here are the logistic information about the next cohort happening here for our End of Life Doula program. Our registration deadline is March 11th. And the reason we close it before it starts is that we're really trying to get as many people into that orientation as possible. And so the actual course starts March 18th, But again, that optional orientation begins March 11th. So we're really trying to make sure that we've got everybody on board. And the course is offered 5 times a year. And so, if this is a session that you can't get into, there'll be another session. And we always encourage you to put your name into our list via email so that you're getting notifications when the courses are open and when the next one is open, and so on. And I've had some people ask about this today, so I'm really excited to see that there's people curious about the companion animal end of life doula program. This is a brand new program that we're launching in about 2 months. I believe we're launching it in April. Yeah, so I know March is coming quickly. And so I think this is a wonderful continuation of the conversations and the learning opportunities that we've had as part of end of life care, because I feel like we all know folks that have gone through challenging and difficult situations with their loved ones. And we probably equally know people that have gone through challenging and emotional situations with losing their animals. And so, how do you see the learning opportunity kind of connecting where it's animals and humans and that compassion that we would have for both?
And there's certainly substantial overlap. So in the 4-week program, that's for people who have not attended the foundational course, so that they get a glimpse at the essential doula support offerings and are able to support the humans and their animals. And then the 2-week specialization, we're really focusing on animal end of life. And we've gotten a number of requests from learners for this type of programming. And we've had a number of our learners come through who say that they not only provide this type of care to humans, but also to animals. So it's been fascinating for me to be able to investigate this whole realm. I've learned so much as I've been combing through all of the research and documentaries and readings, books and videos, and finding the perfect subject matter experts for this, for the material.
Will you share with us a little bit about that? I know we've got again, it's not as big of a team as our end of life doula team, but we've got a nice team assembled to help with this.
And actually, I heard on the radio this morning that it's National Women Veterinarians Day.
Oh, fantastic.
So
if we have any veterinarians with us and our females,
and
happy to have you.
We feature 3 female vets, and one is focused on horse care, and 2 are focused on small animal care locally. And so they are some of our subject matter experts. And then we also have a counselor who has extensive experience leading support groups for pet loss, and also wrote a really excellent book in that realm. So that's some of the information.
And you're involved. And of course, you're there, guiding us through this as well.
All together and putting the doula lens and perspective on it. So we are anticipating that, like with the foundational course, how we welcome more than just aspiring doulas, we sort of hope to see the same. Stress and burnout in that world is
really
unbelievable. I had no idea. Rate of suicide, it's really heartbreaking. So we know that they're taking on a lot emotionally, and we want to be able to reach them in the same way that we've been able to reach people who are burnt out in end of life human care.
Really wonderful.
Right, so vet techs as well, and then people who are experiencing it themselves, people who want to be able to lend a hand to a neighbor or a loved one, and then people who want to include this as an offering as a doula.
Wonderful. And as you can see the information up there, the 2 difference, and I know we had some questions in terms of where they overlap, and the 4-week course, as Francesca said, is really geared towards somebody who has not attended our end-of-life doula training, and then the 2-week certificate is really a continuation of the end-of-life doula certificate program, but this other kind of add-on and additional modules to help support end-of-life companion care.
And I'll mention, this is what I was trying to think of, but I couldn't. We also feature a number of stories from our graduates who have provided support for end-of-life pet loss.
Really nice connection there too. I'm hoping that, I see lots of conversations going on in our chat box. Thank you so much to all of our prospective students today who are answering other people's questions too. We feel like you're in a really great place to be able to do that. These are the questions that people ask most often. And I know we've talked a little bit about that. What's a typical week like in the course? How many hours do you anticipate it may take me? How do I interact with the instructor and the other students? How do online courses work? And what will I receive at the completion of this course? Is there anything in here that you wanted to expand upon a little bit? I know we've touched on all of these slightly.
Yeah, I mean, we're very available. I want people to know that. So if they're feeling nervous about taking an online course, there is ample support
Yeah.
in place for you with myself, over email, with coaches, with instructional design, so many people ready to lend a hand because we anticipate that there will be bumps as we kind of get going.
Mhm. And as I mentioned before, those two opportunities that are coming up as well, the March 11th, beginning of the orientation that allows you to get in there and get more comfortable with the platform. And then we will be having, I believe the week before, a webinar orientation to how to be a successful online learner. So these are great tools to take advantage of so that you can get in there and really move forward as well. So I'm going to kind of move forward here because we're edging up on our time. I do see a few more questions that are coming in. So let's see if I can get to a couple. I'm going to zip back up a little bit because my screen kind of goes down as it goes. Does my computer need to have a microphone and speaker to be set up for a Blackboard session? It does not.
No,
No,
no
it
live
does not.
session.
No live session, so it does not. Um, Are there tuition remission benefits for UVM employees? I believe so. So you definitely want to reach. Oh, there's not. She's saying no. No, there's not. So you want to, but I would definitely want you to reach out to us and talk to us about that too. There are, do we have discounts in this program as well for this? No, we don't. Okay. All right then. Learning something new every day. And so the companion animal, we have some questions about that. Hopefully we've answered those today. Tap what it looks like. Okay, to see the PowerPoint. This question, death doula course I took through IAP college career, briefly touched on all areas, including starting a business, insurance, and their costs is less. Why would one choose the UVM program rather than another one? That's a great question. Thank you for asking that. And I would love for you to respond to that. But I also want to make the plug that this is also connected to our medical school. And so not only are you getting the expertise of that slide that I showed before, I'm going to go back to that too, because I know we've had some questions too of who's kind of joining us in the program. But this is also in connection with our medical school. And so Dr. Gramling, I believe, is in there as well. And so you're getting not only the stamp from UVM in terms of the caliber and the rigor of a course that is of UVM standards, but you're also in connection with Robert Larner College of Medicine, and that sets this program apart versus another one. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
I'm not familiar with the program that was
Yeah,
referenced
I'm not either,
there.
but
I haven't heard of it. I am familiar with some of the other programs. I think all instructors and programs are dedicated to a beautiful cause. And I think that if you come onto the Facebook page and you ask some of our grads about their experience, it's a good way to find out
that's a
more.
great question. Yeah.
I would encourage people to do your homework, and
Mhm.
they can also check out the guidebook that I wrote for the course, Cultivating the Doula Heart, Essentials of Compassionate Care. That really gives you a feel for our philosophy and our approach to teaching, so that might be useful. I don't think that people can necessarily go wrong, and we often have people who have taken the in-person trainings with other training organizations come through our program, and vice versa. Sometimes people just want as much as they can possibly find. So we see that as well.
Great. Thank you for that. That was a great question as well. We'll share a link out to the Facebook page. I know lots of people are asking for that as well. I see Kelly trying to grab that for us.
Yep. And then I have to approve people. There are a couple of entry questions, so I
So you
check
might
in
not
with
just get in right this
Yeah.
second. So just know
It'll
that,
take me a minute.
yeah, and she's with us right now live. So she might just need a minute to get back. So I'm seeing a lot of different questions in here about textbooks. Excited to get started reading. Susan was asking about the Facebook group, so we'll share that. And then, as Francesca did share, she will review and hopefully add you to that group. Is there an advantage, disadvantage of being a retired hospice worker and wanting to be an end-of-life doula?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Thank you for your service and
Yeah.
your work, and it's a true advantage to us in the group as well. I mean, we're able to hear from people's work experiences, from their life experiences, and learn from one another, which is a beautiful part of the course. As
Yeah.
much content as I've carefully curated and prepared, then we get what the learners bring,
Yeah.
which is incredibly rich. I'm always learning.
And I think back to that point, we'll touch on that in a second because I want to see Catherine's asking, do you have to be in a related healthcare profession to become a doula? And no, I think back to your point that you've made earlier is we've had folks join us from just such diverse backgrounds. And it doesn't have to be in healthcare, it just could
No.
be something that you're interested in and you want to expand your knowledge about that as well. So I want to just end, as I've mentioned as well, if there are questions that we have not answered today, and I suspect that there are because there have been so many questions flying in. Um, and if there's something that we haven't answered, Kelly has put up our email address. You can put it up there again, and you'll see it here on the screen. Please reach out to us and ask that specific question. We will route it to the right person to help you, and we will always get Francesca's input if needed as well. So if there's something we haven't answered today, please follow up with us, and we will do our best to get that as well. We do have a lot of information on the website and in our blog as well. We share stories of folks that have gone through our program and what that experience was like for them, what they've decided to do with that as a result. And we've got more coming as well. So that's always a great resource for you. But I
And
wanted
we
to,
do have the syllabus too
and
online.
you do have the syllabus, so you can see, and we touched on the different modules. So the syllabus will go into a little bit more detail about what goes into those different modules too. Thank you for sharing that. As a kind of a closing question, and I prepped you a little bit on this, is okay, so now you're going into your 12th session.
I'm in the middle
You're
of
in the
it.
middle of your
Yeah.
12th session. What has surprised you? I think as you do, you curate the information and you work and you're kind of
Right.
almost an autopilot a lot about trying to get things done and go through the process. When you try to take a step back, what have you learned throughout this process?
Oh, I'm just so grateful to have been a part of it. I think we're all pleasantly shocked by the level of interest that continues to grow. We had no idea. So I couldn't handle the sections on my own. We had this wait list that we could never get to. And so hired 5 of our graduates who are amazing to become academic coaches so that they can assist and we can reach more people with these messages and this material that for many people is quite life changing. So I think for me, it's I always am reviewing the content. I'm always making revisions. I'm editing. I'm adding in new things. I'm pulling out old stuff. I have my pulse on the whole end of life realm and continue to just be so energized and amazed by it all.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're so thankful for you as well. Thank you, everybody, for the wonderful questions today. And again, I apologize if I wasn't able to catch your question, but we would love to hear from you. And we will follow up. It has been recorded, and so we will share this presentation if you wanted to review that or share it with somebody as well. And as we mentioned, the registration deadline for the next one is coming up in a few weeks in March. If you have any other questions, please check out the website, check out the blog, and email us if you do as well. We hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we hope to see you in one of our end of life doula programs coming up soon. Thank you.
Thank you.